We can.
Good, because we've had so many problems, technical problems today, and really apologies. I don't know whether it was from our side or from your end, but again, apologies for not being able to enter the beginning of the conference that I should have, and also apologies in advance for possible noises that you will hear. We are under siege, literally, here in the European Parliament by the farmers who have tractors all around the building, fires and rioting. So it's going to be quite a, I think, interesting background that you will hear during this conversation. So let me first start by thanking ELA, thanking Cosmin Boiangiu for inviting me to the conference. Also, congrats for choosing this topic. Every time I'm asked what are the top 3 impacts that AI is going to have on mankind, always among the top 3 is the impact on labor, the impact on the workspace, the workforce, the work environment in general. And I say that because I am convinced that this is going to be one of the first felt fundamental impacts on society and also on economy. And therefore, the fact that ELA and the fact that you as a community of professionals working on employment or labor issues are starting to focus on that is a very good thing. So again, congrats for doing it. Before going a bit into the substance of what we have done in the AI Act with regards to employment and also maybe some more political or philosophical considerations towards the end, I will say a few words on process. I'm sure that some of you or all of you may want to know where we are in the process. You know that sometime in December we finished the trilogues. We had a political agreement on the text, a trilogue phase. Tomorrow is a very important milestone because the Council in Coreper will vote. You might have heard that there were discussions all the way going till yesterday in some of the capitals, some very important capitals, Paris, Berlin, Rome, as to whether those respective governments will support the text in Coreper or whether they will try to put together a blocking minority. We will see it confirmed tomorrow. I don't want to neither anticipate it one way or another or jinx it, but I am confident with everything that we know so far that tomorrow Council will have a positive vote on the text, which will then open up the way for the last leg of the journey, which is the vote that we will have in Parliament on the 13th of February. We will vote in committees, in the joint committees, LIBE and INCO, and then in March or possibly April, depending on how long the translation process will take, we will have the final vote in Parliament. One way or another, by the end of this mandate, by spring this year, let's say April at the latest, AI Act will become fact, will become the new reality when it comes to governance of AI in the European Union, and as many are anticipating already, it is going to be, maybe not to the fullest extent, maybe parts of it, but it is going to be a blueprint for other jurisdictions around the world that are now considering politically whether, and in fact, not many of them are at the stage of the whether, they are more on the stage of the how exactly to regulate AI, how much with hard law, how much with voluntary commitments towards the industry, but still there is by now a political consensus almost across the globe, certainly in all of the jurisdictions out there, that there needs to be a governance around AI as a technology, understanding by now quite well that apart from its absolutely fascinating potential and benefits, there are risks, and particularly when it comes to workforce and labor, that's a very clear and already felt by some sectors risk, but other risks as well to society, to individual rights, and some say even a broader risk to human nature, to mankind as we know it. It may sound a bit sci-fi and hypothetical, but If we look a bit at the developments of the last 6 to 9 months, the attention that political leadership in Europe, in the US, in Asia, in South America have been paying to this, it is because indeed people, political leaders are taking this, these risks very seriously, and therefore the need, again, to discuss very seriously what kind of governance we put in place. AI Act is that first model of governance. Again, there are critics of the approach. There are those that support it. Overall, there is recognition and support for the risk-based approach that we have taken with this AI Act. The fact that we have tried to find a balance between the objective of providing protection to our rights, protection to the interests of society, at the same time as promoting innovation and creating enablers for innovation to still take place. There's a myriad of opportunities out there that are being opened up by AI in every walk of life, in every sector of the economy. And it would be a pity if we would create, through legislation, through regulation, hindrances to that potential. And that's clearly not been our objective in Parliament. On the contrary, although people usually expect Parliament to be more on the protective side and Council and governments to be their promoters of also the interests of economy, of industry. The two agendas have had an almost equal share of advocates also here in Parliament, and in fact, looking at the overall balance right now that we have in the text, I am personally, certainly I'm subjective, but I am personally convinced that we managed to find that balance. So by April, again, we will be in the situation of having a law adopted. After that, there'll be a period of implementation that will go all the way to 2 months, to 24 months, sorry, 2 years. The governance will start being organized from day one, both at European level as well as at national level. At European level, the AI office will start already preparing its organization, recruiting people, preparing the mechanisms that it will have to have in place by the time that its competences will kick in. The same thing will have to happen at national level. There's a whole body of the law that will have to be implemented at national level, and therefore national authorities will have to use this 2-year period to get prepared for that. Within 6 months, the prohibitions will kick in. Within 12 months, the rules related to foundation models will apply, and then 24 months for all provisions in the law to become effective. So that's the process ahead of us. Now, coming to the topic of the conference and to the issue of employment, few considerations of substance on my side. I will start with what is evident. What we have actually included in the AI Act. Recruitment as a context is recognized in Annex 3 of the regulation as one of the domains of high risk. Why? Because of the risks to interact with the rights of workers, the rights of individuals who are putting themselves up in the process of recruitment, the risks for discrimination, for biases that can come either from the data used to train the algorithms, or even from what is called engineering bias, basically voluntary or involuntary bias that may come from the design of the algorithm, from the instructions, from the optimizations that are being included in the code of the algorithm. So all that may induce biases and prejudices in the way an algorithm works, and that is why AI used in the context of recruitment is one that is identified as an area of high risk, which means that all those providers that are developing AI tools to assist in recruitment processes will have to go through the compliance of the provider for high risk in the AI Act, with a threshold of having or not an actual impact in terms of risks. The self-assessment process, again, I won't go into the details, the mechanics in which compliance is being done, but again, the whole context of recruitment is identified as a high risk. So what that means, again, it means for the developers' obligations to go through transparency, explainability, all the things that are part of the high risk regime. But also, and it's important to note, for the deployers of AI, separate from the obligations that the developers of AI tools in recruitment will have. Separate from that, those that will be choosing to deploy, if those deployers would be a public authority or a private entity fulfilling public services, they'll have to also do an extra fundamental rights impact assessment. There is an extra guarantee that when a public authority that, by its very nature, with the monopolies that it has in terms of public services, it has an interaction with interests of citizens, with interests of society, then they have to go through the extra safety net of a fundamental rights impact assessment to make sure that in the particular context in which it chooses to deploy an AI tool, even if that AI tool has already been complied with by the developer, by the provider when being put on the market, the deployer will have themselves to undergo the fundamental rights impact assessment. And again, recruitment being a high-risk area, that will also apply to recruitment. A second part that is linked to workforce or to the work environment in the text is the fact that emotion recognition as an AI application used in the context of education and workplace is prohibited. That means that as of 6 months from the moment when the regulation is adopted, so if it is adopted in April, 6 months from now, by autumn, AI used for emotion recognition in a workplace is prohibited. So any kind of tool of this nature that is meant to detect the behavior of individuals in the workplace, their mood swings, their emotions, whether they're upset and want to go and, I don't know, do something with their colleague, or their attitude towards work, or any sort of AI application that would be trying to induce somehow the emotion of the workforce while being in the workplace. That's something that, again, as of autumn of this year, would not be marketable and certainly cannot be used in the union. So that's a fundamental impact of the AI on the work environment. And last but not least, there's a provision in the text that says that any deployment of an AI tool in the work environment has to be consulted by the management of the company, has to be consulted with the workforce as an element of transparency and accountability in the use of such technologies in the work environment. So that's, in a nutshell. Of course, there are many other provisions in the text, particularly when it comes to guarantees and protection of rights that apply also to the work environment. But again, what I mentioned are now the specific provisions linked to that. I will close by referring now, I move a bit the cursor outside of the immediate scope of application of the AI Act and touch upon few things that I consider to be a bit more philosophical, more political, but certainly very valid in the political conversations around AI taking place here in Brussels, but not only. I can tell you that the same conversations are taking place in Washington, in Tokyo, in Seoul, in Latin America. So all those democracies out there that are trying to get their head around how to govern, how to regulate AI, they are putting this as one of the key concerns when trying to find the solutions, and that is the impact of AI more generally on the relation between capital and labor, in a way, between the employer and the employee. So it is by now almost common knowledge, common fact that AI is going to have an important implication in terms of jobs. It will render some jobs irrelevant. It will take out of the work environment certain needs because they will be done better or quicker by AI. It will transform fundamentally a lot of other jobs. I would say probably almost any job in the next 5 years is going to be somewhat touched by artificial intelligence in bigger or smaller extents, but the AI will become part of our daily routines in the way we conduct ourselves in the workplace. Whether it is being used as an assistant to what we do, or whether it's going to be part of the processes that we interact with, or whether it's actually going to do part of our jobs, and then we will have to figure out how to integrate that part, what to do with the remaining time that we have, simply by the fact that part of our job is done by the AI. How do we add value, us as humans, to what the AI is doing? These are some of the key questions that we need to start asking ourselves when thinking of the workspace of tomorrow and the relationship between capital and labor, between employers and employees. And I think this is where there has to be a duty of care, at least on two levels. First level is a duty of care in how capital, how employers will decide which sectors of their business to replace with AI. The temptation, you know, there is something that is called an automation bias. Somehow we have a tendency to attribute a lot of credibility. We give a lot of credit to a machine output. Somehow it's faster. Sometimes it processes information much quicker. It gives us much faster results, and therefore we have a tendency to believe that it can solve everything, and that we just put an algorithm out there, or we put a very sophisticated complex software to help us do things, and that solves the problem, and then we send everyone home. And I would advise that we have to be careful, and that employers in general have to be very careful when doing that. And not only because they will have to think about their workers, but also because that sort of automation bias can also hide certain downsides of actually allowing algorithms to do important parts of our work. It can, while achieving immediately visible productivity gains, it can actually induce negative variables that are maybe harder to measure at the beginning, but that in the long run might actually prove to be quite substantial. And you can see already the tendency. I think one of the first sectors where you had AI replacing actual people in their jobs was the creative sector. But you could already start seeing how in some of those sectors, some of the tools, the AI tools that were deployed were rolled back, and that humans are being brought back in as a way of not only double checking what the AI is doing, but actually adding that extra layer of that human touch, which in fact is considered to still be necessary even with what AI is doing. So again, there is the one duty of care that I think has to be in the minds of employers. How exactly, which type of jobs exactly, not only because there is an algorithm available out there or an application, but simply what is worth replacing with an algorithm altogether, and how to best achieve that. The second duty of care is about training. I'm sure you probably spoke about that at length in your interactions today. This new revolution driven by AI is creating a whole new world where all of us, absolutely all of us, except those that are already born into it or educated into it, but all the rest of us will have to be trained on what this means for our professional lives, for the way we do the jobs we do. So there has to be an actual investment by capital, by employers in skilling and upskilling and reskilling staff, employees, and also a very responsible and serious look at the education system as we know it today, where I think we all have an interest to invest, not only the public sector, not only governments, but also in a joint venture with the private sector, because I think the interest is shared that we are already starting to invest now in the education system, so that we will have the pupils of today, the students of today, will have the necessary skills and competences and will already be coming out of school well adapted to the needs of an economy and society that will be AI powered in the next 5 years at most. And the other last thing, which again has to do more with a bit of a philosophical or political outlook at things, is the nature of the jobs that AI is replacing. I mean, we've had technological revolutions before. We've had automation replacing humans before. But automation, as we knew it back when industry changed completely, when robots came in factories, it replaced manual labor. Exact tasks, how to tighten a screw, how to bolt a door into place, how to fold metal, how to do basically, again, mechanical work that looked always the same based on a given output. AI is different, and the kind of transformation that AI brings in is fundamentally different from the automation and the introduction of robots in factories 20, 30 years ago. It is replacing brain work. And by the fact that it replaces brain work, it enters into a completely different floor of the pyramid in the workforce. And then it begs the question, okay, if AI is going to replace those tasks that were done by employees, again, using competencies that were, until AI arrived, considered to be high-level competencies, what do you do even if you upskill, reskill, and invest in that? What do you do then with that part of the workforce? Will they be the ones ending up serving the algorithms? So if I have an algorithm that is going to do things, but is going to need constant prompting, for example, right? So I'm sure you know by now there is a job which is called a prompt engineer. So if you want your AI to produce things, you need to prompt it, you need to trigger it. Okay, how do you prompt it? You'll have a human being sitting behind the keyboard and constantly prompting the algorithm to do things. Is that a job that would be sitting where in the food chain? And if most of our workforce will end up serving the algorithms that are going to do then all sorts of other things that until now are being done by humans, what does that mean for the value of work as we see it and understand it now? So again, I don't have an answer to that. I'm just seeing these things coming, and I consider that there are matters that we have to consider very carefully. There is a very serious structured dialogue that needs to start taking place between employers and employees, between also at government level, in order to prepare our societies for the transformation that is coming very fast, and which risks producing even bigger rifts in society if it is not properly explained, and if we don't give a very clear sentiment into our societies that we are preparing, we are thinking of the interests of our citizens, and that we are preparing and accompanying them in this process of transformation. Otherwise, you hear the people out of my window unhappy, frustrated by things that they consider to be imposed top-down, for which they are not prepared, which they don't accept, often not because they rationally are not right, but because emotionally they have not been properly, practically introduced at the right pace, with the right narratives, with the right explanations, and with a feeling that you are accompanying your society in very radical transformations that are taking place around it. So with those thoughts, I want to probably have taken already too long. Thank you again very much to ELA, to Cosmin and you for inviting me, and I hope you had a good day until today. Thank you.